Hey guys, Lucas here from Vintage Surplus, and today we're going to talk about different style magazine pouches, specifically MOLLE pouches that you'd have on your kit, your belt, your backpack, anything like that. We're going to go through all the kind of standard kind of types. As a disclaimer, we don't necessarily have all these in stock. We carry pretty much at least a style of all of these, so you can find what you need on our website. But the particular one I might show off, we don't necessarily have in stock or have at the moment. I'm going to split these into two categories. I'm going to split them into an active retention and a passive retention. And we'll go into like how that looks and what that does for you as we go through. But remember, we're talking about two different types of magazines and magazine pouches in general, active and passive retention. So first off, we'll start with the most basic that you're going to see pretty much anywhere, especially if you're in the US military, as your just standard flat magazine M4 magazine pouch. Now this is going to be what we considered a active retention magazine pouch, so we're going to go off with that. Now active in that sense means there's something actively holding this on there that you have to kind of operate to get it out. So this flap is the active retention going off there. As well as you can see an elastic band on a lot of them, and that gives a little bit of extra retention on the magazines when they're in there. So that way, even when you pull one out, the next one isn't just going to fall out. So what a flat mag pouch is good for is it's a very secure way to hold 1 to 2 magazines. Some are made only to carry 1, some are made to carry 2. If it's made to carry 2, you can still carry 1 really securely in there. So it's a good general purpose, put it anywhere, it's going to work for you. Flat mag pouch is going to do that. So these are your baseline mag pouch. Next you'll see flat mag pouches that have maybe some accessories or a little addition to them. Now this one's an older one. This in the late 90s, but still it's got a flap, so it's active. You got elastic loop here for shotgun shells, anything like that. And instead of an elastic band, you have shot cord. Now that's going to add an adjustability to it, so that way if you only have one magazine in there, you can cinch this shot cord down and really hold that one easily. So that's pretty good to go. Again, active retention. You have to physically move something or operate something to get the magazine out. And lastly, we'll get into another flat mag pouch where it's getting a little more crazy. It's still active retention, good flap, shot cord, and then a little bit of reinforcement on the bottom. Again, this is going to hold your magazines really solid, 1 to 2, maybe some other stuff as well. Next, we'll talk about another active retention type magazine pouch. This one, instead of a flap, you have a shot cord on top. Again, active because you have to actively move something out of the way to get your magazine out. This one in particular has an elastic band around the side, which is going to hold, again, a little tight if you have 1 to 2 magazines in there. So even one's out of the way, put the elastic back, elastic band's kind of cinching up the pouch a little bit, so you're good to go. So that's your second type. These are nice because it's still secure. It's a little easier to get to your magazines, but in my experience, the ones with a shot cord on top, it's a little harder to get magazines back in. So when you're reinserting, putting it back for retention purposes, it can be a little harder with a shot cord because sometimes it just gets in the way. Whereas in the flat mag, it's pretty easy. And for the flat mag, if it has the elastic or shot cord on the sides, you can always tuck in the flap. So you can tuck this flap out of the way and have your 2 magazines exposed, and the shot cord's going to hold on to them just fine. So that way you get rid of some of that active retention, but it's still very, very secure. Okay, so we're moving into the passive retention for magazine pouches, and this is the most simple passive retention mag pouch you'll find out there, this kind of style, where the pouch itself is elastic, and that elastic material is what's holding on to the pouch. So it takes a little bit of force to remove it, but at the end of the day, it's the pouch itself. Nothing has to be operated, it's just the force pulling it out. So passive pouches are good for, it's quick, you can pull it right out, easy to go, it's going to remain open top for the most part. But reinsertion can be difficult depending on what kind of pouch it is. So for this one in particular, there's, as it is, it's going to take 2 hands to put your magazine back in. So remember that when you're looking at passive retention, depending on what type it is, reinsertion is definitely a lot harder than your flat mag or other active retention kind of pouches. So next we're going to another type of passive retention, but this one also has an active retention to it. So in general, this is just a speed reload from the USMC, and it's got a grippy material on the inside. And so instead of elastic, it's that material inside that's holding onto the magazine and keeping it secure in there. As well as you have the addition of an active retention flap. So if you want to tuck that flap away, just like on a regular flat mag, you can. get out of the way, and now you can pull this magazine out. So that's good, it's fast, easy to get. On this particular type, you can get your magazine in and out fairly well if they're not really abused and flattened out. All right, and then this is another passive retention type pouch. This is one that has an insert in there. So you can see Kydex pouches, just retention insert type pouches that can be removed even sometimes. But that keeps the shape of the pouch in general. So putting it back in is real easy. Getting it out is real easy, but it's not just gonna fall out. So it's not gonna slide out if you just get upside down or backwards. And this type in particular, again, has active retention as well because you have this flap you can tuck away. So for most passive retention pouches, I would say if you're really looking for something, if it has the ability to be actively retaining the magazine as well, that's a good option. Just make sure there's an easy way to tuck that away because you never know what you're gonna be doing. If you're running around too hard, falling, everything like that, that flap is a big thing because it's gonna keep your magazines well retained no matter what's kind of happening. So that's your basic types of magazine pouches. Your flat mags are good to go. They can be kind of universal in use. Not magazines, but you can use this for a lot of things. You can shove sometimes water bottles in there, other items. They kind of become somewhat general purpose, but magazines are what they're made for. When you're looking at magazine pouches, especially the type, make sure you look at what magazine is made for. Not all mag pouches are made for, P-mags like this or polymer magazines, because typically polymer it's a little taller, it's a little wider, so they might not all fit that. Your standard USGI ones might not fit 2 polymer magazines in there. Whereas some of your higher end ones, like this Eagle Industries one, you can fit a P-mag just fine, but it's gonna be a little tighter in there. So just make sure you keep that in mind when looking at magazine types or magazine pouch types. Each one has their advantages, disadvantages. Flat mag's definitely a little slower, but it's the most secure, whereas your passive open top pouches are definitely the fastest, but the least amount of retention. So yeah, that's just a basic overview. If you have any other types of magazine pouches, that are out there that I didn't really cover, that kind of. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Mag pouches come in all shapes and sizes, just like every other pouch. So you can get pretty much anything you want if you're looking around hard enough. We have a good selection on VintageSurplus.com. Pretty much all the types I covered, maybe not the particular one again, but you can find that style. So you can find what best works for you in multiple different brands.